I'll show you how to go from this to this on your Harley. Coming up. That's right, welcome back to another episode of The Journey. We're continuing on with our Sportster modification series, and today we're going to replace the stock handlebars and grips with a set of Todd Cycles 12-inch strip bars and Arlen Ness grips, along with a Burley cable kit to make things easier. I'll show you the step-by-step process, along with a few tips and tricks along the way that helped out. These are always the kind of videos that I like the most, and they help me with my DIY projects. I'll show you exactly what I'm doing, and I hope you get something out of it. All right, so there's a number of steps, and a lot of them don't have to happen in any particular order, but there's two things that aren't debatable, and that is you have to cover the tank, cover your fender, and pull the main fuse. All right, so the main fuse is under this left battery cover here. Big mother. Set that aside for now. All right, next we're gonna use a 12mm to disconnect and drain the front brake fluid. Take the cap off for the master cylinder and make sure you get all that fluid out of there. Right. You gotta suck the rest of that out. You have a vacuum pump that's gonna help, but I don't, so I'm just gonna sop it up old school. These blue shop towels are great. They're like paper towels on steroids. One towel got all that. All right, now remove the Torx bits that hold the clip on for your brake line. Now it is worth noting that I took a picture of all the cables and how they're routed, as well as the wires. So when I go to redo it, I don't have any question as far as where it was before and what the best route's gonna be. Now we disconnect the brake line completely. Save those Banjo bolts, but you're gonna get new washers with your brake line. Try to get the tank out of the way so we can get access to the wiring underneath it, and they say you should be removing the tank, but I'm going to try to get away with not doing that and just prop it up. So let's see how that goes. All right, next we need to take tension off the throttle cable so we can remove that. We'll take 2 3/8 wrenches so we can loosen up the jam nut and turn that in. Right now we need to disassemble the throttle housing. A couple more T25 Torx bolts. Just one actually, I think. No, there's 2. I lied. Get your throttle cable in the front, your return cable in the back. Take a little bit of tension off. Your kit may or may not come with new brass fittings. The Burley kit, I believe, does come with new ones, but we'll hold on to those. And so now remove all these wire clips so we can disconnect them from under the tank. There's also some zip ties that you'll have to snip so you can get the throttle cable out. And so there's another Torx bolt on this side. You take that off so you can get access behind this plastic cover. So same thing that we did over on the throttle cable, we're gonna do on the clutch cable. We're gonna take these clips off so that we can get access behind this sleeve, this boot. And then if we set that aside, slide it off, we can actually collapse the clutch cable. And that'll give us the play in the cable that we need to remove it. So taking the clutch lever apart isn't all that difficult, as long as you have a set of snap ring pliers. So there's a snap ring underneath this pin. So I took that off, and then there's just a pin here that slides out. And you can rotate the whole clutch lever out of the way here. And with the extra tension, you can just pull the entire thing out. There's a bushing pin here that you'll reuse. And now your cable's free. All right, so now we're almost to a point where we can loosen the clamp and take off the bars, and we can take the controls off. But first, we actually have to de-pin a couple connectors. You have both turn signals into one connector, and they loop around the speedometer. What you need to do is mark the sequence that these are installed in here, and this connector actually has 1 through 6 on it. So I just wrote down black left side aligns with number 6, purple right side aligns with 5, blue right side aligns with 4, and so on, and then I wrote that down. Burley actually does a great job at telling you that. They even leave you a spot right down here. Don't mind the chicken scratch. Now depenning, that's the bane of my existence. You just have to pry this open. There's a little hinge. You have to what they call de-pin this, and I just found that a safety pin works well. You'll notice that there are metal connectors in here, and then there's an access port. So you go in the access port, up against the connector, push in, and then you just pry up. Once you feel a little resistance, you just pry up on that tab, and then you can pull out. So grab this like you pinch it with your fingers, and this is how you can do something that really takes 3 hands with 2 hands. Pinch like that, and then have enough that you can roll your fingers to pull in this wire, and then go in the access port, pry that tab up, and then you can just pull these wires out. It's as easy as that. Don't get too frustrated. Once you get it, it's really easy, but it does take some getting used to. Next up is extending the wiring. Burley gives you wire extensions for your turn signals, and these already have a male and female connector on them. These are the same pins that we just took out of the connector when we de-pinned. You just slip the male and female ends together to make the connection, and then they give you different size, heat shrink. They give you 6 small ones to go over each individual connection. You just slide that over. And then once that's there, they give you a large one to go over the entire thing. The other wiring kit that they give you is for the main controls, and you have to actually solder those connections, and I just didn't want to deal with that. I actually found on Revzilla, NAMS, who I think is even the company that makes the wiring for the Burley kit, they actually make a pre-connected plug-and-play extension. This is bike specific, and it was about 30 bucks. That's worth it to me. There's plenty of tutorials on YouTube if you want to see how to solder your connections, but this is my recommendation, especially if you're kind of a rookie at it. I also got, again from the same company, NAMS, this is Flex Wire Cover 3/8 ID. So I'm actually gonna go over everything with that, and I've seen a few people online say that it's easier to pull wire through bars and you get less snags when you use this. So we're gonna give it a shot. I'll show you how it goes. So here we are. I have half the wires pulled in the bars, and I can tell you a little bit about what works and what doesn't. After some trial and error and a little bit of swearing, as I told you, I took some Mason line and tied a nut onto that. I was able to snake that from the controls out the bottom, and then from the control side, I attached the Mason line to some of this Flex wire cover, which as you push on it expands. And I covered the entire wire harness with that. Now what that allows me to do is I just fish the Mason line through this, and I've got my two wires here at once. I fished the Mason line through that and just tied it off, whipped it, and did just a simple double knot on that, and it's not gonna go anywhere. I was able to kind of push the wires in through the top as I pulled them out through the bottom. And the beauty of this is it puts all the tension and stress on the case and not the wire that's on the inside. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side and then mount the bars, and I'll check back in with you then. All right, now we have the bars dry fit and it's loosely taking shape now. At this point, it makes sense to just, now that you've got your controls that are dangling there, loosely attach those, fit them together. Don't snug anything down yet, but just get it roughly in place. And then just add your extensions if you bought the plug and play extensions for your controls. Put the pins back in that one Molex connector for the turn signals, and then plug everything together, put the main fuse in, and give it a test. Make sure everything's functioning properly before you have all the controls totally put together and everything hooked back up. So I'm gonna install the left grip, and it's basically just super glue. I'll rough this up a little bit with sandpaper, just to make sure it gets a good bond. You don't need to sand through the paint. You just wanna make sure it has something to grab onto. The right side, I'm just gonna clean up with some emery cloth and card cleaners. Make sure there's no residual machining oil or anything on there that we don't want. Note the orientation of the logo if there is one. Make sure it's facing up. Apply the glue and then slide it on. I just want to apply it to the grip, not to the bar, because I feel like if I apply it to the bar, it's going to kind of squeegee that to the edge, where if I put it to the grip, it's only going to push it inward. So one quick motion, they say, you got one shot at it, and we're going to give it hell. Next up, as we move forward with the grips, is going to be the right hand grip, which is the throttle, and we're going to do the throttle cables at the same time. So we're going to grab the new cables that Burley gave us, and making note that the top cable at the carb is actually the throttle cable, and the bottom cable as it comes across is the return. We're going to remove the old ones. I'm lucky in that I already replaced this air cleaner with the R&S Big Sucker. So if you've already replaced an aftermarket smaller air cleaner, you're going to have a little bit better access to your throttle linkage here. If you just still have the stock one or a larger air cleaner, you can take a look at another video, and I'll put it in the description below, where I actually replaced the stock with the R&S Big Sucker. So that'll help you through that step, but I'm just going to skip over that now and not remove this, and then just take the cables out. So there's a little spring that comes pre-installed in your cable, and that actually sits right here in this seat, not underneath. Then reconnect, slide in the ferrule on each cable. All right, and the grip just slides on and is contained inside the control housing. One tip as you try to assemble everything is just to jam something in the brake lever so that you don't shear off the brake switch that's in there. Fit it all back together. There's 2 screws to hold that back on, and then just slide those brass ferrules back into the grip, obviously noting that the throttle cable is going to be toward the front, so as you pull on it, you accelerate. And then we just have to go back and adjust it. All right, now adjust your cables to your liking, making sure that it bottoms out so you're at full idle when you let go. And then back out your jam nut to lock it down. All right, and we install the longer brake line. Assuming that you have the right length cable, make sure you route it similar to stock. You'll notice that there's 2 clamps, one underneath the triple tree and then another on the right side by the bars. Keep those clips in place and run the brake line through it. Don't forget your new washers on each side of each banjo bolt. There should be 4 of them here. All right, next up, and the final thing we're gonna do before we torque everything down and make final adjustments, is replacing the clutch cable. So we're gonna have to start out just like with the throttle cable. We'll turn the adjuster all the way in on the cable and remove the primary cover. The first thing it'll do is remove the left foot peg before I change the oil, so I don't need to worry about having the drain pan in the way. You're gonna need to make sure that your bike is perfectly flat if you don't wanna replace the primary case oil, but I'm changing my oil, so I don't care that it's on a kickstand. I remove the primary cover in a cross pattern. This primary cover is holding a spring in place, so watch out for that whenever you take the cover off. All right, so this piece, if it doesn't come off already, take that off. Now it's counterintuitive a little bit. You actually need to turn the threads of the center stud in to get that to come out. So once that's loose enough, continue taking this piece off. So now we pull this ramp assembly out. Be careful, there are ball bearings in here. Shouldn't come apart, but. And you take your cable out from there, remembering which direction is facing in and out. Set this aside so we can put it back in the same way it came out. All right, this is a great example of what to watch out for. This came out, everything looks nice and clean. Except there's an O-ring that sometimes comes out on this and sometimes it's stuck behind. You need to make sure that that's taken out because your new clutch cable is going to come with a new O-ring that you should use. And if you have two O-rings, it's gonna leak like crazy. All right, now get this lined up and thread the new one in. Now we reinstall the ramp and capture the cable here with the coupling. Just the way we had it before. There's a alignment notch that we need to make sure aligns up top here. All right, and there's an important adjustment here. As you go in, you just screw it in until it starts to catch. You can feel it's loose, 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 loose. And right as you start feeling some resistance, stop. And then back it out 1/4 turn, and that's your proper adjustment. Now there's two flat spots on this plate, and there's a flat spot on the threaded stud we were just turning, and you need to make sure those align. And if the flat spot doesn't align, don't turn the stud in, but go out or clockwise, which again is counterintuitive. But you know, we backed it off 1/4 turn. Go slightly further to get the flat spots to align. Don't turn it back in towards being tight. When you put the cover back on, there's a notch that's going to align with the notch right here. And there's a recess in the cover to capture that spring. So just make sure as you put it on, you're gonna feel the spring resistance is gonna give way as that seats in the centers. If you're changing the fluid, put the plug back in and fill it up before putting the cover on. So reassembly is just as easy as disassembly. Just have this bushing here, inspect it, make sure it's in good shape. This one is, so I'll reuse it. Pack that out, slide your cable in there, align the two, and dry fit that bushing. Now, your lever back in the perch, drop the pin, put the pin into the top, and take your snap ring pliers and install the snap ring in the bottom of the pin. Now I'm going to do some adjustment before I put that snap ring in. Clutch adjustment's very specific, so you'll do the adjustment on the cable itself. What you're looking for is the play from the perch to the larger diameter of the cable. You want 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch. That's about good right there. Now just tighten the jam nut on the adjuster, slide the boot over, and reinstall your cable in the clips along the frame. All right, it's pretty much a wrap. I love the way the bars look. All that's left now is to torque everything down, bleed the brakes, and put some Loctite on everything. I'll post all the factory torque settings that I found in the description below. If you found this video helpful, please hit like and consider hitting subscribe if you want to follow along. I'm gonna hit the road now. I hope to see you there. As always, be safe and be well. I'll see you in the next one.